Hello guys, and welcome to the second episode of the video series Game of the Day. I am Grandmaster Christian Kirilla, and I will be analyzing a very interesting game today that has been played in the 10th round of the French Team Championship, the top 12 as they call it. This game is between Wesley So and Fedorchuk Sergey. Wesley So is a notorious guy, right? He participated. He just switched federations from the Philippines to the United States. He participated in the United States championship, and there were some incidents happening over there, right? He got forfeited one game because he was writing encouraging words on his score sheet. Quite an interesting guy, quite an interesting character, very strong player, and probably one of the world championship contenders in the next few years. But let's see how this game went. His opponent, Fedorchuk, is a grandmaster from Ukraine. Very strong opponent, very resilient, sharp tactical vision. So a very exciting game we have today. Let's get going. Wesley is white. He starts with c4, and we have an English opening on the board. Right, Wesley's repertoire has been quite diversified lately. He plays knight f3, d4, c4, and rarely, but also he goes into the e4. Knight c3, knight c6, knight f3, bishop c5. Obviously, there are a lot of ways Black can play this game. There is bishop b4, who seems to be an interesting choice and quite a popular line in top level. There is also f5, which tries to seize immediate control of the central squares and get some sort of space advantage on the king side. Nevertheless, white can counter with d4, and then we will get a very sharp game once again. Black nevertheless decides to go bishop c5, a3, and we have already our first rare move, let's say. More often people go e3 at the beginning, trying to go d4 and c5 immediately. a3 is also a very interesting line, right? He tries to provoke the move a5, after which the knight will have a very nice place to go on the square b5 in the future. Obviously not immediately, but Black decides not to go a5. Probably that was the reason behind it, and he plays d6, controlling the c5 square and preparing to meet b4 with bishop b6, and now c5 is no longer available. White continues with e3, bishop g4, preventing the move d4. Right, now if white goes d4, Black can simply take and take on d4, and now there is a very annoying pin. But I'm sure Wesley So was already prepared for this, so he decided to play h3, bishop h5, and now again d4 is not possible, right? A normal move would probably be bishop e2, with the idea to continue your development by castling, bishop b2, and a very normal game to come. Probably Black can even try to play something like f5 in this position. Nevertheless, he always have to be careful for things like knight takes e5, which might actually work in this position. Take on d1, take on d8. And the knight escapes via e6. So actually f5 in this position is not immediately possible. So bishop e2 was a decent alternative. Nevertheless, white was in combat mode. He probably saw the last Game of Thrones, which was a brutal episode. So he went with g4, expanding on both sides. His plan is to like grab as much space as possible, which hopefully will allow him to put a lot of pressure on the black pieces and hinder their development. Bishop g6, d4. White is now again threatening to play c5. Take on d4. And a6, quite a necessary move, right? Otherwise c5 is coming, trapping the unfortunate black square bishop. Nevertheless, white is overextending a little bit. Bishop g2. h5. Fedorchuk immediately tries to seize some sort of counterplay, create some points of attack for his pieces, right? h5 is just a very normal move. Castle. Wesley has only one gear, and that is develop your pieces as soon as possible, keep the initiative alive, and don't worry about putting your king in a slightly awkward position, right? H takes g4, h takes g4. Now the rook looks like it's gonna have a lot of business on this file. The queen might come here at some point. Anyway, the king doesn't look 100% safe. Nevertheless, he's doing quite okay for the moment. So, queen d7. Black attacks the g4 pawn. Rook e1. And now black is faced with a difficult, well, not very difficult decision, but quite an unpleasant one. He cannot play knight g7 to try to castle, because d5 would come, and black's knight will have a very difficult time finding squares, right? So let's say he goes back to d8. Now unfortunately he's kind of restricted, and also this very strong moves comes. Now black cannot take because of knight e5, and white's attack is simply irresistible, right? Black will probably resign in the next few moves. If he goes bishop a7, now white has a very nice move in the spirit of the position, playing with the initiative and not making any slow moves. So going forward, right? Knight h4, attacking the bishop. If black takes, bishop g5 comes, and the position is simply winning for white. He can either lose a rook, which will translate into being down an exchange, or he can simply give this knight, and then the queen will also fall. For example, rook h8, rook takes e7, bishop takes e7, and the position is simply winning for white. So obviously Fedorchuk didn't want to end up in this unpleasant situation, so he played king f8. Now the king looks quite safe over there, but as you will see, white still manages to find ways to get to him. c5. Wesley is playing very, very energetically, right? Bishop a7, d5. He's definitely on for the hunt. He wants to roll over his opponent pretty much and finish the game in a very, very brutal manner. Knight c7, queen d4, a very good move. White is pretty much improving his pieces with every single move. The queen needs to be centralized, right? It's attacking the g7 pawn in the same time is defending the c5 pawn. This is the place for the queen. Again, the g4 pawn is also protected. So quite natural moves, nevertheless very, very powerful. Rook d8. Black is trying to create some threats, maybe with taking on c5 and putting some pressure on the d5 pawn. White nevertheless finds a way to indirectly defend against that. Bishop b2, creating the very, very powerful battery on the long diagonal, right? Pointing towards this g7 pawn. Now if black takes and grabs the pawn, well, that would be a major blunder, because after knight takes d5, queen takes g7, this is a checkmate. So obviously black understands that and plays f6. Another very beautiful combination would have arisen after knight f6, which kind of looks normal, right? If you try to go g5, then probably knight f5 is gonna create some sort of difficulties for white, shooing this queen away from the long diagonal. And also with this g5 we allowed black to have some square for his knights, so he can go knight f5, then knight h5, and the position gets very, very complicated, and I don't know if white is still on top. So after knight f6, Wesley had something else prepared. If you have time and you want to solve a very nice tactic, take a few minutes, set up your board and find the solution. The move was rook takes e7. Now if black takes with the king, then you can take the pawn and the bishop is hanging. The same applies if black takes with the queen. C takes d6, and again this diagonal opens up. Black cannot take because the queen is hanging, and then we also capture this bishop. And now with bishop pair, two pieces for the rook, white should have an easily winning endgame. So rook takes e7 was a big problem. That's why black needs to keep his knights kind of connected, linked to each other. But his position is already very, very difficult. And what is the problem with this move f6? What are the squares that are being weakened by moving the pawn to f6? Well, a very important one is e6. So white played queen f4. Nevertheless, in this position, white had the chance of closing up the game with a very, very nice sequence of moves. Again, this is not an easy solution, and since the almost 2800 didn't solve it, it's obviously a difficult combination. But knight g5 was the move. Very, very, very nice move. I'm sure he saw this idea. He probably underestimated it, or wasn't able to calculate till the end. because white has to make a series of very precise moves in this position in order to finish his attack. Black has to take, otherwise knight e6 is coming. Knight e4, opening up the diagonal. The battery is created, and now the g7 square is very, very weak. In the same time, white tries to go knight g5, knight e6, and create complete chaos over there. So, rook h7. Black kind of needs to defend against that, right? Knight takes g5, knight f6. And now taking the rook would not be as great. White has to continue keeping the initiative alive. If you take here, black can simply take with the bishop, and if g5, then he would play knight h5, defending this pawn. Again, now black is the one who has two pieces for the rook. He does have indeed a weaker king, but in the same time, if he manages to stabilize his position and ultimately open up the game on the queen side, then white might be in trouble. So the move was not knight h7. Here white needs to continue maximizing the potential of his pieces. So what is one piece that could contribute to the attack? That is this rook. The move would have been rook e6. Very, very strong move. No material has to be taken before all the pieces are brought to the attack. This is a very, very important part of playing with the initiative, especially when pieces are flying all over the board and complicated attacks happen. Garry Kasparov was probably the best player that ever played with the initiative, right? He would completely murder anybody in this type of attacks, right? So now, if black takes on c5, white can simply take on h7. Take on h7. Rook takes f6. If pawn takes f6, then queen takes f6, and after king e8, rook e1, checkmate is coming very, very soon, right? If black goes king g8 in this position, then white goes rook f8, and the checkmate again is coming very soon. Queen takes g7 here, rook e1, and again queen h8, queen takes h7, or bishop f6 are coming. I mean, the situation is very, very grim for black. He's a piece up, but his king is under a very, very heavy attack. So obviously this wouldn't be a very nice position for him. If he goes king g8, knight h7, bishop h7, rook a1, important move, and after d takes e5, b takes e5, knight e takes d5, g5, the position again is very, very difficult for black. So again, a very, very complicated position, and I would assume Wesley was just unable, or he underestimated how strong his pieces are in this position. But he decided to take it easy and try to increase the pressure, played a bit safe. So he played queen f4. Now he's threatening knight g5 because the pawn would be pinned. Knight h6, g5, If knight g5 in this position, black would simply play bishop f7, defending against knight e6, and the situation is not that easy for white. He can also take on g4 after knight g5. He can also take on g4 and try to play with an exchange down. After knight e6, king f7, take on d8, rook takes d8, and the position is not that easy for white. So Wesley decided to go g5, queen g4. Oops, not knight g4, queen g4. An important move, right? Black is trying to exchange the queens. If he manages to do that, he might have good chances to survive. Obviously, when you have a space, like when you don't have space, it's always good to try to exchange pieces, because you make more room for your other pieces to maneuver. And also, when you're under attack, we know that we should try to exchange the queens. It will make our opponent's attack less strong, right? So queen d2. Nevertheless, white had a nice response in this position. Knight d4 was a very nice move, and after queen f4, knight e6. The point is that after knight f4, black doesn't have the capture on g5, because rook takes e7 comes, and now he's completely lost. He's gonna lose one piece. So white is winning. Nevertheless, knight d4 could have been met with bishop f7, which is probably what Wesley thought his opponent will do. And now he had to find a very nice move to keep the initiative going, which is queen e4. Exchanging queens, but in the same time we want to bring our second knight in the center and create more threats and put more pressure on black's pawns. So after queen takes e4, knight takes e4, knight g4, knight e6, now bishop takes e6, f5, right? And now again, we don't want to move our knight, because if we move our knight, the c5 pawn will be hanging. So the move he had to see is rook a d1, bringing our last piece into the game, putting a lot of pressure on the d6 pawn. Now if black takes the knight, we can simply take back, and now his knight will be lost. Also, things like rook f4, rook f7 are being threatened. So the position is already very bad for black. A very nice sequence of moves. So he had to seek this queen e4. Otherwise, the position is close to equality. Queen d2. It's difficult. White is already starting to back down, and his initiative is starting to fade off. So after this move, black is starting to gain some sort of control over his position. Knight f7, g takes f6, g takes f6, queen d4. Now this is already a loss of time, and I don't really understand why he decided to play this move. Black is threatening to take on c5, right, and open up his bishop. Take on c5, and the other thing he's doing by taking on c5 is creating a nice square for his knight. In the same time, he also has a very nice square on e5. So white has to be super fast. Again, if you have If you have a few moments, this is another critical moment in the game, and white should have played knight b5. Again, a very strong move. Pieces are hanging. You know, whenever you're playing with the initiative, you have to kind of understand that piece value is not the same. If you have to give pieces to keep the initiative and the attack going, and it looks like you have enough compensation for it, go for it. You know, a takes b5, bishop takes f6, and now it's black who needs to find ways of defending. Knight f5, and now a4. Very nice move. Not an easy move to find though. The black square bishop is starting to feel very uncomfortable, right? This is almost winning for white. So Wesley didn't see this move, so he played queen d4, knight e5. Black is also quite precise in his defense. He doesn't want to trade queens and bring his opponent's knight closer to where he wants to go. So he nicely activate his own pieces. Queen takes g4, knight takes g4, knight d4. Now obviously his knight is very nicely placed here. It creates a lot of difficulties for white. For once he threatens this pawn on f2. So in the case this bishop will be opened, things might go pretty bad for white. But first he has to defend against knight e6. So he plays king f7, knight e6, rook g8. Suddenly the position's character has changed. It is black who now has the initiative. As you can see, his king is completely safe on f7 right now, while white's king is under very heavy pressure from the black rooks. This bishop and this knight are the pieces that need to be taken away from the file, and then the attack will be very strong. So here Wesley decided to go for a pawn grab, which is a big mistake. What he had to do is try to activate his pieces, right? Even though the position is still worse for him. The initiative is now on black's side, and white will have to be very precise not to lose big material. Knight e4, bishop takes e4, rook takes e4, and after rook h6, black is on the attacking side. He wants to double up on the g file, and white is gonna have some problems defending against that. Also, his center is a bit overextended and it's under attack, so black is clearly better. So Wesley decides to go knight takes c7, a very risky business, because now black removes his first piece from the g file, activates the knight, right? Knight f3s are coming, bishop f5, bishop d3, take on d6, knight c8, very good move, preparing to take this guy. And now Wesley blunders and plays d7, allowing his opponent to checkmate him. The only move here would be rook takes e5, trying to find counterplay in any way possible. The position is already very difficult. Despite the fact that you are 2 pawns up, these rooks, the bishop is now alive, the knight is perfectly centralized, so the difference between black pieces and white pieces is quite evident. So Wesley had to realize that and accept the fact that something went terribly wrong, and try to look for counterplay. Rook takes c5 would have been one way, f takes c5, and only now d7. But after knight b6, this pawn will fall, and black will simply be an exchange up for one pawn. Clearly better. So Wesley played d7, and now Fedorchuk finishes off the game very nicely with knight f3. King f1. If white takes with the bishop, then bishop e4 is coming, king f1, bishop takes f3, and now rook h1 is a threat that cannot be parried. Despite the fact that your pawn is on the 7th rank and you can now queen, unfortunately that's not enough because black will simply checkmate. So big problems for Wesley. He had to go king f1, and now a very nice combination. Bishop d3, rook e2, rook h1, bishop takes h1. Wesley resigned in this position because of bishop takes h1, rook g1 with a checkmate. A great game, great battle between two very sharp players. Wesley played almost perfectly up to a point. He seized the initiative, he grabbed space advantage, centralized his pieces, but in the critical moment he failed to find the final blow, right, with knight g5, or even after queen g4, when black first in this position. When black first, as you remember, he offered queen exchange with queen g4, white could have played knight d4, and that would have been an almost winning position. This is a great example of how to play with the initiative, but how volatile the initiative is, and how easily you can lose it and transfer it to your opponent. Fedorchuk kept his composure, defended, played the moves that he had to play, dodged the bullet, and he ultimately converted his own chances. So a very nice game, and I hope you enjoyed it. My name is Cristian Kirilla, and I will see you in the next installment of the video series Game of the Day. See you soon. Thank you.